You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome to the month of February. I find there are a lot of different feelings from a lot of my clients during this month, and it definitely differs from where each client is in their healing. But February can feel like love is being shoved in your face with the cards and the candy, flowers, couples, social media posts, the whole thing. And if you are sitting in the aftermath of betrayal, trauma, and life-saving divorce, it can feel like the world is celebrating something that your body doesn't trust and feels like it will never trust again. Triggers might be sky high the next couple of weeks. Triggers around February, triggers around anniversaries, triggers are going to be popping up like crazy. Whether you hate love right now, scared of love, scared of loving again, or you are leaning back in and not sure what healthy love even looks like, this episode is for you. Holidays like Valentine's Day and anniversaries are basically pre-scheduled reminders. Even if you've done a ton of healing, your body and your heart can still light up when the calendar rolls around because those dates carry meaning. They hold memories, expectation, routines, and the emotional before and after of your life as you now know it. So when the world starts pushing romance and celebration, it can bump into those places that you are remembering heartbreak and deception, loss of what you thought you had. When those triggers come up, sometimes it can feel like you're failing in your healing, failing in your progress. What this really means is that you are human and that your nervous system is responding to something really significant. A trigger around a holiday doesn't automatically mean that you are in present day danger. Sometimes it is simply your nervous system surfacing all of that unfinished grief. I think sometimes this part gets missed a lot when we talk about triggers or talk about healing, because when you're finally feeling more stable, when life feels less chaotic, because a lot of you are separated, a lot of you are divorced, a lot of you maybe have had boundaries, legal boundaries, personal boundaries, you're getting more of that space. Your system often has more capacity to feel what it couldn't feel when it wasn't safe and it was a lot of chaos before. So you might actually notice stronger waves around anniversaries or Valentine's Day, not again because you're moving backwards, but because you are safer now. And the body is basically saying, okay, we have enough ground underneath us now to process this layer that never got processed. And that can feel really confusing because it looks like you're getting worse, but it actually can be a sign that you are ready and your body's ready to look at something that was really hard. I explain this to my clients when we're doing thematic work, that sometimes after a session, when we get into that deep part of the brain and pull up things, emotions that have been blocked by shock and haven't been able to be processed, that it can feel like it's getting worse. Trauma has to rear its ugly head in order for us to put that trauma to bed. When you are learning how to trust and tell the difference between your gut and your intuition versus triggers that aren't happening like today, they are from the past. Part of the healing is learning that trigger that's coming up is a signal. It's not necessarily the verdict, it's information. It's not necessarily proof that you're not healing. So I really want to encourage you to be aware of how you're talking to yourself around these triggers and when you're experiencing them. The work is to meet the trigger with that curiosity instead of the panic and just that self-blame or meaning making that can get in the way of moving forward and processing it. A lot of times it's the grief wave that needs space to move and to soften. And sometimes it is your gut picking up on a real lack of safety. Either way, you don't have to interpret being triggered as a failure or not healing. You can interpret it as your nervous system is communicating something to you. And you get to respond to that from a more steadier part of you now. A lot of women notice that they start to feel off the days leading up to maybe a D day, discovery disclosure day, or a birthday, an anniversary, and like February, a certain holiday. And they aren't consciously tracking that date at all. Then it'll click later, like, oh, wait, that's why I've been edgy. That's why I've been weepy or irritable, wired, tired, whatever that is. This used to happen on my anniversary every summer. I would never put it together until I would see the date and be like, oh, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's my anniversary. No wonder why I was so pissy. So just notice too that that's how triggers can work, where remember your body knows the truth before your brain does. It knew the truth before your brain did when you were living in that false reality. So sometimes this still happens. It's just quite remarkable how much the body holds. So it can feel like your body is in a way betraying you and feeling like healing's not working. But again, what's usually happening is that calendar is holding that implicit memory. Your mind's not counting down the days, but your nervous system's learned the rhythm of when pain happened. And it will start to brace armor early in preparation. I call this the anniversary response or the body calendar. It very much is a nervous system protection. In my own experience and with the women that I work with, those pre-date waves can absolutely shift over time as the body processes the stored activation and the memory starts to become integrated. We own our story, we tell our story, the bracing loosens, the head body relationship starts to become more connected. That flood that happens when you're triggered starts to lessen. You still might remember the date. Valentine's Day still might be ugh, but it's not going to hijack you. That's one of the ways I've seen the somatic work really help. Not by erasing what's happened, but by releasing the PTSD like body activation, those symptoms that gets glued to the memory. So the anniversary can become a day that you notice rather than a day that your body relives over and over. I want you to remember really out of all of that is that progress does not, and in my experience, will not look like never getting triggered again. Sometimes progress looks like the trigger arriving with less intensity, lasting less time, and you find your way back to your center, yourself, your truth, your body a lot faster. Right now, notice what energy is showing up for you in your body leading up to this Valentine's Day. Let's just not make it wrong. Even if you are feeling angry, make it make sense. I hated this month. I hated this day. I wondered who in the hell made this day up? Like, okay, let's just single out all of those who don't have a lover right now and make them feel like absolute shit. Thank you, inventor of Valentine's. What the heck? Right? And on a side note, I actually looked this up. I wanted to find out the answer to that. Like, who in the heck invented this? And it was in my year of Rage Against Love because I was trying to find this nut job and I don't know, write a letter or something and just say how stupid this day was. But what's interesting is I actually found where the root of this come from, and it comes from Saint Valentine, which I do remember hearing that. But what I didn't know is that this Saint Valentine was honored as a martyr and a witness and someone who held on to his faith. Now, I know the records are really sparse talking about this, but the theme is that he survived his loyalty under pressure and was a faithful witness. That word witness stood out to me because after betrayal, something inside of us gets executed too, not by a sword. It gets executed by deception. That version of you that trusted, the version of you that believed the story that they told of what was really happening, you believed the story. The version of you that loved innocently was executed. It died. And then, of course, the story of this whole Valentine's thing. Mid-century, the US decided to make money off of the people using this day, surprise, surprise, and it turned it into all the romance and cards crap. So during my Rage Against Love year, I loathed going into the store. In fact, there's one time I went to the store, it was the night before Valentine's Day, and I was pissed because it was so late at night. And sure enough, there in the card aisle was this swarm of men scrambling for the last card late at night before Valentine's Day. And it took everything. I probably would say something now, but back then I was still dealing with my like people pleasing stuff. But it took everything out of me to not yell at these guys and be like, your wives freaking deserve better. Like they deserve better than what this is right here. I was so mad. So if you are feeling that right now and this is the space that you're in, man, do I get it. We're just going to hold space for that. But going back to this St. Valentine, like underneath that, the story is about his faithfulness in the face of persecution. And a lot of you know what that feels like. Not that you were too much for loving, but that your love was tried by fire. You were faithful to what you believed was real in that relationship and how you gave that love. And then you kept showing up, right? And then reality arrived and something in us died. That emotional, spiritual death, the death of innocence, the death of illusion, the death of the version of you that you knew before it all happened, the version of them before it all happened, version of life before it all happened. It's being a witness to that love that you gave. And that's not saying that you're staying loyal to that person that harmed you. It means you're staying loyal to the truth of who you were in it. I can look back now in that hindsight, that beautiful hindsight 2020, right? I can look back now and say, I did love, I did give, I did try. And that wasn't me being weak. That was devotion. I'm proud of that. I can choose to hold on to the faith that I had in that relationship, in that love, the faith and the love that I have in love in of itself, faith that love is still real, faith that love is not what betrayed me, his betrayal did, and faith that I can still choose where my love goes. So I stopped trying to make Valentine's Day mean what it used to mean and shifted to make it all about the love that was still safe. So I poured it into my kids, holding on to that love that did still exist, made it all about my love for the kids. So I was able to still make heart-shaped pancakes for my kids in the morning and reach out to the people in my life that had proven themselves to be steady, allowing that day to be a reminder that I wasn't too much for loving fiercely. I was just giving my love to someone who couldn't hold it with care. I still held space for the whiplash, right? The moments that I wanted to gag walking past the Valentine decor or a couple holding hands, right? Like, please do not ask me to celebrate something that hurt so much. Holding the love that I have for people that were still safe in my life and I wanted to love, but also holding space for the moments of grief, grief for what was lost, the version of me that lived so fully and didn't know what the hell was happening behind the curtain. Which brings me to the next point that I want to highlight today. And honestly, I just want to validate it because I hear this all the time. There are moments that you might look back and think, I shouldn't have loved so hard. I shouldn't have loved so much. I shouldn't have stayed loving for so long. If that thought has been circling and circling in you, it just makes sense why that would come up. Your brain and your body are still trying to resolve a really important question. How do I make sure this never happens again? So it's going to start auditing everything. It replays scenes, rewrites stories, and it looks for those moments that you should have known, the moment that you should have left, or the moment that maybe you should have been less open and less vulnerable to all of that love stuff. And what happens is it can start to conclude that your loving so much was a mistake, but that is protection, not truth. Your nervous system, again, is trying to build this rule that's going to keep you safe. So if I love less, then I'll hurt less. Or if I don't love, then I won't get hurt. If I just hate love, then that pain will never happen again. I want to say this really, really carefully to hold space for those of you that are feeling that right now. Loving deeply, however, is not the same as abandoning yourself. Many of you loved with such devotion and such patience in good faith, and the betrayal still happened because of the choices that you did not control. And healing isn't about punishing your capacity to love. That big, beautiful heart of yours does not need punished. It is learning how to pair your love with protection, healthy boundaries, pacing, discernment, so that you never have to disappear inside of that love again. So for a lot of women, also, the pain isn't necessarily about regretting how they loved. They might feel that mix of pride with devastation. It's more of, I did love well, I did show up, I was loyal, I was tender, I was so committed. The intense emotion that's often coming up is around, why wasn't that respected? Why wasn't that love received? Why was it rejected? Why wasn't the way that I was so loyal cherished, honored, instead of ignored and discarded, abused, taken for granted? That, I think, hits our dignity wound. It's so much bigger than just heartbreak. I think is wrapped up in that shock of watching something so sacred get treated like it's just nothing. I was going to say ordinary, but like less than ordinary. I felt like it was treated like garbage, is how I felt. So the question then becomes, how could he? Why would he choose that or her over my love, over me? That question makes complete sense when your brain is trying to restore order to something that feels morally upside. When you love with integrity, and that's the difference, right? Like your love was rooted in integrity. Okay. Theirs wasn't. So when your love is rooted in that integrity, your mind is going to assume that love is met with care. When it's met with deception, the nervous system just scrambles to find a reason that's going to make the world make sense again and feel safe again. This is why a lot of you are wondering how to get out of rumination, why things still aren't making sense, why you can't maybe let things go, why you're still trying to find the answer to the why. Your system's trying to regain that coherence. The answer that sometimes helps women land is not going to be a satisfying explanation about the ex, because there's usually not one that's going to match your level of integrity. The answer is going to be a reframe of protecting your heart, but not to excuse their behavior. The choices that they made in that relationship is not a direct decision on the value of your love. They're a reflection of their capacity, or limited, their entitlement, their compartmentalization, their avoidance, their addiction patterns. Your love didn't lose. It was offered to someone who couldn't hold it with care. And that's, I think, where a lot of the grief comes in, the grief that your love wasn't received. So if you're looking for a shift in how to see this right now, and if you're not, then it's okay, skip over it. If you are looking for a shift, and when you're finding your brain in that loop, why didn't he choose me? Why did he choose that over me? Shift to, what do I need right now to honor the love that I gave without abandoning myself again? If you are feeling more triggered this month, does not mean you're not healing. It actually might mean that you are. When you are finally feeling more of that stability, creating more safety through those boundaries that you have. And your life is a little less chaotic. And it might still feel chaotic, but I remember saying to my sister, life still feels hard, but it's my hard. It was totally different hard, and it's because it wasn't mixed with his chaos. So I don't know if that makes sense to some of you. Life might still feel really hard, but it's not mixed with that chaotic. Your system has more capacity to feel than it could before. If you are feeling a lot this month, you're not back at zero, I promise. I believe it means you're ready for that deeper level of healing. The triggers are information. The practice is pausing and asking, is this past threat or present day threat? Is my body remembering, or is my gut warning me? Either answer is useful. Either answer gives you what your next step is. What do you do with love this month when it feels activating? You first stop trying to force yourself to feel how you think you should feel. If you hate Valentine's Day right now, let's just let it make sense. Let your anger be valid. Let your grief be valid. Let the whiplash be real. Disgust and devotion can both live in the same body. You can be proud of how you loved and still be devastated that it was not received. Second, you get to choose where your love goes from here on out. And I'm not even talking about romantic love. If romantic love feels too big, too loaded, too scary, that is okay. Love is so much bigger than romance. Love can be the sun on your face. Love can be your children's faces. Love can be your best friend who has proven to be steady. Love can be your animal. Love can be the warm drink in your hands. Love can be your garden, your music, God, your version of God. Love can be the decision to take care of your body instead of abandoning it. And third, practice safe doses of love, not the kind that makes you overfunction, prove, or please, or disappear. Not the kind that asks you to override your body and your intuition, but the kind that helps you stay in yourself, connected to yourself. Healing does not mean you shut your heart down. And I think that's what made me want to do this episode, is because I remember feeling like I had to shut my heart down to everything love to stay safe and protected, because it felt so dangerous. My hope is that with this episode, you can keep your heart open with these safe, let's just call it micro doses of love, because we don't want to swing way on the other side of the pendulum. We don't want to shut completely down. It will stall your healing. Love boundaried is safe. Love without boundaries is reckless. And that's how I interpreted romantic love. We bring it back to microdosing in safe ways. And if this month feels hard, just remember, love isn't what betrayed you. Betrayal did. Your love is still yours. You are love. You get to choose where it goes next, because you can. Take care of it. Healing from betrayal, abuse, and divorce is like putting pieces of yourself back together after trauma's torn you apart. And it can be really overwhelming to know where to begin on that path of self-restoration and self-love. It might question your ability to even recognize what healthy relationships look like, let alone enter into a new one. As you learn to cultivate these 7 levels of intimacy within, you start to put yourself back together by learning to take up space, have a voice, trust yourself, trust others, connect back to your body, mind, and spirit, and really start becoming the chooser of your life. The Intimacy Within self-paced course walks you through each level of intimacy, practice suggestions, worksheets, printable workbook to go along with each section. Your journey to self-discovery and genuine connections can begin right now. Start today by going to amiewoolsey.com, go to Intimacy Within, or click the link in the show notes. See you soon.